It hasn't even been a week since the Game Awards wrapped up, and already there's a leak on 4chan for Naughty Dog's new game. Allegedly coming from a disgruntled Naughty Dog employee who hates the direction the company is going in under Neil Druckman, which, to be fair, this has been a reoccurring rumor since The Last of Us Part 2 got leaked on 4chan back in 2020, and given Neil's only gotten more creative control since then, it's not hard to believe, this leak comes with exact names and plot points. It also offers some loose descriptions of the gameplay, but that's not the focus. I went through the entire 4chan thread, checking every single post, not just rereading the article or the OP, in order to give you the most definitive version of this leak I could. If you have any interest in this game, be warned, there's a very real chance this could spoil the main story and ending. Link to everything down below. The main character, Jordan, is a member of the Intergalactic criminal group known simply as Ace. Previously a 5-man band, they began to drift apart after their leader, and Jordan's father figure, Luis, played by Tony Dalton, vanished one day. The reason she's bald is because she shaves her head to hide her identity. No, I don't know why a helmet is out of the question. The guy on the monitor we see is Colin, one of the old members of her crime squad. He's played by, and I apologize if I say this wrong, Kumail Nanjiani, and serves as the comic relief of the game. The tutorial takes place on a nearby moon, and sees Jordan trying to chase Colin down, eventually leading to both getting in their ships and taking flight. However, there is no space combat in this game, the last part is just a cutscene. As she chases him down closer to the nearby planet of Semperia, they discover the outer atmosphere serves as a natural EMP, and it takes both ships out of commission. Naturally, they hurl uncontrollably towards the planet, where the entire game takes place. If you're wondering then why it's called Intergalactic, it's because Sony and/or Naughty Dog see this as a franchise, where each game will follow a different planet with its own history. This lines up with the marketing always referring to this as a new franchise, not a new game. Jordan survives the crash, but her ship is now a hut with air conditioning. It will serve as the player's base of operations and can be customized and decorated throughout the adventure. The eye patch lady we saw before will still have limited contact with Jordan. She's described as being active throughout the game, but the story synopsis never references her again. It's assumed she'll serve as a quest giver and radio banter. Jumping to the gameplay, it's described as open-world Uncharted with a lot of sci-fi elements. The vast majority of enemies the player will face are AI-driven machines, as we saw in the trailer. There's actually said to be a decent variety of them, with multiple melee, ranged, and even vehicle types. The leak also says vehicular combat will be present in the game. Gunplay is never referenced, but guns do exist in the world, so it's safe to say the player will eventually get some. The only form of side content brought up are factories. These house and produce the various machines you fight throughout the game. Apparently taking some notes from the Horizon duology, these factories have no bearing on the story, but how many of them you do and don't take out will affect the difficulty of the game's final sequences. They're described as being part of the game's ecosystem, so it could also have an effect on the roaming enemies you find throughout the map. The main quests involve tracking down the other members of Ace on the planet, presumably starting with Colin. As each member is located, they will stick around the player's base and have full schedules like the NPCs in Red Dead Redemption 2 do. As the player goes around the planet, there are indications of an ancient civilization. It's not clear if these are meant to just be subtle details the player can notice if they pay attention, or if these serve as open-world collectibles. It's probably the latter, though. As Jordan finds the members of Ace one by one, all three share the same core story. Luis sends them a message to meet them on this planet, tells them to come alone, and tells them not to tell anyone else, even the other members. Jordan is the only one of them who was never contacted with this message. At some point after finding all three, the game takes a hard turn. An underground race of aliens, known as the Semperians, kidnap all of Jordan's crewmates and destroys their home base, all customization and collectibles included. These creatures are the aliens the game foreshadows, though their design is not particularly alien. They visually look like lightly mutated humans with insect legs that are not always distinguishable depending on their clothing, although they speak in their own language. These legs can grow in size to help them scale walls, and they have night vision. I'll be referring to them as the Martians for convenience sake moving forward. The game takes on a survival horror approach once they are introduced into the picture, similar to what happens towards the end of the first Uncharted game, as Jordan makes her way through the underground tunnels to find her friends. Eventually, Jordan makes her way to a room where Luis plans to execute the Ace members in front of a large gathering of the Martians. Jordan begs for an answer about why her father figure is doing any of this, and it's here where he spells out the game's plot twist. The Martians are actually mutated humans who were teleported to this planet after experimenting with quantum leap technology. And said quantum leap technology has caused them to rapidly mutate and evolve to the harsh environment. Wait, wasn't this the plot of a Jimmy Neutron episode? Anyway, when Luis crash-landed on his planet, this would be the time when he vanished, he found himself sympathetic to their plight and took up the cause. He's capable of speaking their language, and it's revealed that they see all Earth languages as evil, hence why they no longer speak it. The Semperian religion, founded by the Heretic prophet, claims that they will suffer generations upon generations until a Messiah arrives to bring them back to their ancient home, at which point they shall reclaim it and purge the residents. That's Earth, by the way. It's also meant to be a plot twist that the machines you've been fighting were built with the express purpose to assist in the evasion of Earth. Luis is implied to believe he can bring them back to Earth but get them to be peacefully accepted and prevent human extinction. He then proceeds to execute all 3 members of his former organization, causing Jordan to, once again, ask what the hell. He responds to her, but I wouldn't call it an answer. He claims he didn't want her to have anything to do with this, that's why he never contacted her, and says their presence was merely a means to an end. He had already told... Galactopol... Really, Neil? That was the best you could do? Alright. He told Galactopol that 4 of the 5 members of ACE were on the planet, and at this point, a fleet of Galactopol spaceships with anti-EMP technology arrived. Ooh, how convenient. Why killing his former comrades was necessary, beneficial, or even remotely desirable to his plan is never explained, and the leaker said as much when directly asked. Luis claims to have a soft spot for Jordan, so he orders the Martians to detain her while they fight Galactopol. Their plan, obviously, to use the Galactopol cruisers to escape and go to Earth. Jordan manages to escape, naturally, otherwise the game would end, and must fight her way through a war zone between both sides. She gets to Luis, who is controlling a giant tank, and the final battle begins. Jordan ultimately emerges victorious and kills Luis. His dying breath is requesting that Jordan finishes what he started, and that the Martians deserve to see their home again. At this point, with Jordan having control over the tank, the player is given a choice. Jordan can either destroy the Martian automatrons, or destroy the Galactopol cruisers. After either choice is made, Jordan escapes the planet on Luis's ship. I guess the EMP technology left an opening or something, I don't know. The player then gets an ending based on the choice they made. Either Galactopol completely wiped out the population, or the Galactopol cruiser scrap can be used by the Martians to get ready for a proper invasion of Earth. Okay. There is no way to know how true this is or isn't. But given the exact details on display, I can't imagine it'll be that hard to find out. So while that aspect is a matter of waiting and seeing, I gotta say, this game sounds really boring. I know it's not gonna just be rescuing 3 people, there's almost certainly gonna be more main quests than just 3 individual missions. But at the same time, how inconsequential will those objectives be if the synopsis can completely omit them from the plot outline? And if it is just those 3 rescue missions and they go on for a long time, how much filler is there? Or how many missions is just gonna be gathering intel? Or will they keep moving around on their own, and so every time you get to their last known location, it just gives you a new X on the map to follow? This being an open world game also has concerns. How much time is going to be set just traversing the open world? And are they going to actually devote mechanics beyond a whip and climbing to it this time? Will the player be able to interact with the environment in any meaningful way? Will the atmosphere and setting be enough to keep it interesting? How many little interactions or point of interest can you find between major events, especially if they go for a massive map? I mean, the open world segments in Uncharted Lost Legacy and The Last of Us Part 2 were largely carried by the novelty and change of pace of being part of linear action games. If the team makes the mistake of thinking those segments could carry an entire game on their own, then this might replace Horizon as the most nothing experience Sony has to offer. Speaking of nothing, this story sounds worthless. I imagine it's going to annoy a lot of players. As mentioned, it sounds like there's only going to be 3 important objectives throughout the base game, and it appears it's going to rip the rug from under the players to make them hate a group, only to try and make them feel bad for them after the fact. Because that worked so well with Abby the fake natty. And the game literally destroys everything the player has, and there were no plot points described beyond the final act. This is sounding like one of those video game plots where the player doesn't actually partake in anything, instead constantly having to play catch-up with things that have already transpired, which you may know was one of the core problems with Dead Rising 4's plot. I gotta say, with Amy and Bruce no longer at the company, it makes me wonder if Naughty Dog can still write stories for video games, or if all of their productions going forward are going to be 3-hour movies bloated to be 20-hour adventure games. And finally, the character of Jordan goes largely unaddressed beyond explaining why she's bald. And I'll just say that there's a difference between a character design having a justification and having a purpose. We were given a justification in the leak, regardless of how weak, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be any point in the story where that actually matters, so there's really no point. And it doesn't serve any thematic purpose that we've seen either. At that point, it's a design first with reasoning second. That being the only detail covered indicates she's not going to be getting much in the way of a character arc. And if the preview trailer is accurate to the final product, this character is ugly on the inside and out. Like, if Neil was gonna model his leading lady after John Cinemoy, could he have at least copied the personality too?
That's the last one? Okay then. Thanks, mates.
Seriously, her cockiness looks obnoxious. Let's compare her to Jacob from Dead Island 2 real quick. Jacob's confidence manifests in a few ways, but most importantly for this video, it's reassurance. Whenever people try to warn him about how impossible the situation is, his reaction is to say he's up for the task, and that they're worried for nothing. By comparison to Jordan, when her only contact for who knows how long shows concern over her safety, she can't even bring herself to stop drinking her Coca-Cola or even lift a finger to tell her, I want to say friend, but at no point is she treated like one in the trailer, that she's still listening. Jacob comes off as seeing himself as capable and not worth being concerned about. Jordan comes off as seeing concern as being below her and not worthy of acknowledgement. Now, I cannot tell you whether or not to believe this leak. That's your call to make. But Naughty Dog needs this game to take off. They deliberately retired Nathan Drake from Uncharted and retconned his son out of existence. And the 2 protagonists for Lost Legacy just did not leave that strong of an impression. Jack and Daxter are never coming out of the vault because anyone interested in making that kind of game has either left the company or is lying low so they can continue to feed their families. And The Last of Us is deader than Joel. This game cannot rely on goodwill from previous entries made under the Amy and Bruce regime, and Naughty Dog as a company is being treated like the Bud Light of gaming if the comment section is anything to go by. They need a hit and they need some goodwill. But if this leak is accurate, this might be the Joel in 1 that finally Old Yeller's Naughty Dog.